Seeing the unseen. Today, we are joined by someone who's seen it all, from aerospace to defense, and now deep into trenches of AI-powered automation. Ralf Klädtke is Managing Director of Gestalt Automation and formerly held senior leadership roles at TE Connectivity and other giants across security-critical industries. I talked with Ralf about the robot, not one that builds cars, but one that inspects them. So picture like 32 cameras rigged in a tunnel, full-size train rolls through it, and in seconds, everything is captured, like a full 360-degree digital twin. Every bolt and every panel, everything is checked, locked, verified. So it sounds really futuristic and science fiction. So instead of people or humans talking around, like walking around for days, sounds like the next revolution in quality assurance is already here. And AI meets this hyperspectral imaging. It's like computer vision specializations, like making this invisible world of industrial defects visible. This is where Ralf can talk about and where he sees what's currently going on. It's like really an interesting topic. Welcome, Ralf, to the TEQ Shift Podcast. We're interested to hear your stories.
Mark, thank you very much. Really appreciate the great introduction, the excitement of technology, seeing the unseen, hyperspectral imaging, meeting AI is a great potential. Really love it. Before diving into the technology, let's give a little bit of a background from my side. So my background is captain in the German Air Force. That's when everything started. Master of Aerospace Engineering. And then in young age of 28, already director of the German Space Agency, representing Germany and the European Space Agency, developing X-38 lifting body crew return vehicle jointly with NASA, then going into Airbus, vice president, developing next generation of reusable launches. And the last 17 years been in CEO, CTO positions, executive board positions, getting passion for entrepreneurial success, driving technology in combination with entrepreneurial success. That was a lot of fun. So just to get started, as a quick introduction. Thank you.
This leads me exactly to the question which I already talked with you last time. It's like, hey, why are you doing your job? Because when I look at Gestalt Automation and compare what you just said, it's you've been in executive boards and really big enterprises, and now it's a bit more entrepreneurial, hands-on, and kind of a new setup with Gestalt Automation. What makes you doing this shift?
When you compare just the last position, driving entrepreneurial success in the transportation solution segment from 7 billion to 9.6 billion, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of energy. But in hindsight, with all these positions, you go higher, higher, higher in revenue. But what is the fun part of it? To be honest, the bigger it gets, the more in an ivory tower you are. You are talking to basically 10 people that you're working directly with. And then the organization is bigger, bigger, bigger. And you lose the emotional link, the passion of the teams. And that's something when you go into something like Gestalt Automation. Here we have AI, we have hyperspectral imaging, we have industrial automation, robotics. So all the fun parts and the team size where you know everyone by heart, where you get part of the team, where you can roll up your sleeves, when you get really in the machine room and when you can enjoy to make a difference, to optimize, and there is no barrier. It's not a big organization that just puts you in a small box.
So you've led a lot of transformations and turnarounds. In your view, what do you think must a company do to actually pull off these strategic changes? What's the important part?
Back in time, you could see there was not an entrepreneurial mindset. There was no customer focus. A lot of things were found out that were not ready for the future. Similar at TE Connectivity, we found a lot of topics that needed to be changed. And what I learned at Carl Zeiss is that such a cultural change takes something like 3 years. And my lesson learned was in the beginning, you talk to the leadership, you have a great strategy, everyone agrees. And then surprise, surprise, it's not moving. Why is it not moving? Because you don't get the passion and the energy of the teams. So at Carl Zeiss, they've learned it from Hilti. And when you see now Carl Zeiss has moved since I left from 3 billion to 11 billion. And with a lot of success, and this success is implemented in 3 cultural waves. And it takes 3 years to implement that. And this kind of methodology, which is cascading from the top level all the way down, I've even implemented at TE Connectivity in 3 waves. So like at TE, we've trained 2,000 people every year. 600 to 800 I've trained myself in Japan, in Korea, Morocco, all over the world. And that is something, I would say it's a mix of 50% you implement your strategy top down, and you generate strategic ideas by the teams, which otherwise are not heard, just lost. So it's important to not just go top down, but as well bottom up to generate ideas how to change, how to implement, and to customize for every team what fits best. Plus getting this team spirit and energy. And that's something you can try to do it in half a year in a very small organization. But the larger it gets, it takes 3 years, whatever you do.
Let's deep dive on that a bit more. So you said the ingredients. I mean, you have a passionate team, you have a team full of energy, you need a culture, and you said about those 50%, like let them bring up ideas, let them bring up initiatives. And the other 50% is like initiatives from the corporation or from the management. Isn't it usually like that it's kind of clashing and then it's a different direction? How do you make sure that this goes in the same direction?
What is crucial to that is that you get a top aspiration. We want to grow this business to be number one leader worldwide. And then you do a balanced scorecard in a strategic analysis. You find out where are we good at, where are we bad at, where should we go better. And then let's say 3-4 main strategic initiatives are defined. You can say very easy, I want to maximize value. I want to minimize costs. I want to create growth, and I want to change the culture or want to be more sustainable. And at this top level, then you can break it down in strategic programs, strategy, execution, talent. And then you have typically something at 15 programs. And when you work with the teams, they get the introduction. What is the top level company strategic aspiration? What are the top level strategic initiatives? And then the team can find out, okay, if I want to minimize cost locally, we are in Morocco. We can use local suppliers instead of suppliers from Europe. We can utilize target costing, should costing techniques. We've understood how it works. We're not doing it. We need a cost researcher. So they have ideas and they have daily pain where they know we are wasting time and money. How can we get better? So therefore, let's take the Morocco team. Then the Morocco team comes up in such a workshop. We do it in a walk where everyone talks to everyone. And at the end, collecting the ideas. We put it on the wall. We cluster. This is strategy. This is project management. This is procurement. This is quality. And then we prioritize. The team prioritizes what is our top priority. And then we break it down in actionable one-pager so that you really can turn their ideas into action. And then you have the top strategy and you have their subset of a strategy, which is 100% linked to the top level strategy. And that is what makes a difference. And you have to iterate time by time and make sure that things are not just left alone. Otherwise, you have a nice wave of excitement. It goes down, is lost.
Have you got an example with surprisingly high impact? Maybe in the beginning it wasn't even seen, and then it had surprisingly high impact.
At Carl Zeiss, we were working with one production team, and they thought, okay, lean is top on the list. Let's implement that. And then we supported the lean implementation. And this team at the end has done with the same team size 5 times the productivity, 5 times the output, which was incredible. We were hoping for 30% more productivity, which is typical when you start implementing it. And they were so passionate about it. And as we were supporting them, even over the weekend, joining them when rebuilding the assembly line, there was a level of energy, it was unbeatable. Cool. They put transparent pipes, put table tennis balls in. I said, this week we want to be here, next week we want to be there. And then every week they were moving it higher and higher.
That's like the story every innovation department wants to hear. Really great.
Yeah.
Hey, I would like to go more into the role of AI, because when we look at your hyperspectral imaging, it's like huge amounts of data and there becomes a lot of stuff visible, which hasn't been visible before. So how does AI help when hyperspectral imaging suddenly makes it visible? And what is the real breakthroughs that when these two technology meet each other, what's possible at scale?
When you take the typical quality assurance, you have defects that you can see in the visible spectrum. You see, okay, there's a structural damage, there's a scratch, there's an inclusion that doesn't belong there. And that's something that typically is quality assurance. It's with people, sometimes with cameras in the visual spectrum. And that is at the limit already. So if you want to go beyond, we try to combine hyperspectral and AI. What does it mean? In the hyperspectral domain, the visual domain is just very narrow. But now we go to near infrared, short wave infrared, medium wave infrared, long wave infrared. We even use X-ray, we use ultrasonic, whatever can create images in order to find hidden defects in the food industry. When you look meat production, then when you see the meat picture, the meat image, you see, okay, this is raw meat, this is fat maybe. But when you go into hyperspectral, you see things that you don't want to see sometimes. There is some wood in it. It's in yellow. Then there's plastics. You show it showing up in blue. When you go into the hyperspectral, you can see up to 220 different spectrum bands at the same time. We can even say this is PP, this is PET, this is PA66, which means you can even backtrace it. In the beginning, I know it from the space industry, hyperspectral was used on a satellite. So they could tell on agriculture field, this is wheat, this is corn. So what is on that agriculture field? And you could even tell the insurances loved that. After a storm, a hail, you could tell when the farmer would say 30% of my production is gone. Satellite could tell, okay, it was not corn, it was wheat on that field, and only 20% are destroyed. You can tell with satellite, even now drones are used in multispectral, you can tell what is the degree of water in the ground. Fertilizer, you can identify if there's enough fertilizer on it, can precisely tell materials. And that is the advantage that you cannot see in the visual area. And now what we do is we use this kind of image information and then train the AI, which means that when you have your typical visual inspection, you have high scrap. But when you have now hyperspectral, you find defects that on the visual side are not visible. You find them early, and you can even push elements out of the production line, because otherwise they get assembled with more and more good parts, and the waste is higher and higher the more you go through the production line. So if you have this inline inspection early, and if you train your AI, and it's possible that you can train over time. So when over time you find out, okay, I have more defects identified, then you can train the AI with these defects and make sure that those defects are detected early.
Hey, but to be also here critical and moving forward to, now I understand like seeing the unseen and the data which comes out and applying it to the modern, or let's say bleeding edge technologies as well. Then also the questions comes up like, how do you build like the software engineering team, but also the tech stack, which is okay with this very modern technology stack first. Second, also somehow compliant, because you are working with very sensitive data sometimes, and you get a lot of data from, you get a view what's going on and what's broken, what's not broken. How is this affecting your business model, and how can you make sure that this is secure, compliant, and the whole technology team is somehow top notch? How can you secure that?
I think the key to that is that you don't try to do it all. Take now Gestalt Automation. Our core capability is to be the AI company. We work with premium product partners for hyperspectral cameras like Specim, with Keyence, with Basler, with IDC, Infratech. So we have product partners for the cameras, and that's a win-win situation. Because we utilize their cameras, we sell them. And with AI, with customized AI, it's important that we support our customers not just once, fire and forget, but over time. That we are as a partner there in order to train additional defects in the future. Always improving the production line. Even with the capability saying that a production line is getting closer to the borderline samples, that it needs new calibration. Can we take the night shift to calibrate the line again? Or when the quality is still perfect, so we can extend the maintenance interval and take more time for production. So in order to make that happen, we have a couple of blocks. We have the smart inspection layer, which is the smart inspection solution with a visual, infrared, whatever camera, with customized AI training, and where we integrate fully in the customer environment to make sure that this is continuously included. And then we have software as a service. We have our InspectSys, our machine learning operations system, that in the beginning we can train. After a while, when the customer is trained well, they can train own defects, can improve the AI capabilities over time. And then we have AI as a service layer, where we have the cloud, the edge computing, so that we can optimize it on cost, and that the pictures are traceable, that when we find, even after the fact, there were some defects we could not find in the beginning, we can trace it back and say this and these were the defects, and we can train the AI again, which makes us much more performant in this setup. And of course, cybersecurity is a topic. when we have internal software development, third-party software, that we ensure cybersecurity requirements, make sure that this is all compliant. And I think for us, important that we are hardware agnostic, that we are not just stuck with one camera partner, that we are open architecture, that we can implement ourselves in any kind of environment that comes from the customer and add our building blocks into that. And on our side, we customize, but we don't rebuild every time for every customer, because that would just break our neck.
Hey, looking at the customization of those projects or implementation projects, which part is the most challenging one? I mean, I pointed out compliance or cybersecurity concerns, or when you work with this much data, maybe also it's a matter of trust. Could you point out more what's the challenging part, like how to get started and what does it mean to make sure everything which we just covered is actually in place?
I think the most important part for all AI applications, not just the smart inspection solutions, but when you look at AI in general, it's clean data. When you look at the data portion of it, when you tell an AI the earth is flat, the earth is flat, the earth is flat 3 times, the earth is flat. No way out. Yeah. So therefore, if you put good and clean data in, it's giving great performance. Same with when you train for defects. When we don't have enough defects, we can take 1 or 2 and virtually generate other defects. Few shot learning, it's called, so that you take a few defects and then generate a whole cloud of different defects in order to train faster. So this can be accelerated. But the data part is extremely important. And when we are in high risk areas like aviation, it's important that we are calibrated, that we're not overfitting, underfitting, that we're really on track and make sure that our results are traceable. So that's key. Because when you go in these large language modules, then we talk about hallucinating. And I've met many colleagues at the C-level that were already in the complexity trap with AI. So just an example, some had 300 applications for AI. No user interface, they were not calibrated, they were not controlled on the certain versions. And then you have 300 models that don't generate value, you just burn money. So therefore for us, it's key for anyone who would like to work with us that we generate money. So our goal is return on invest 6 months, 9 months, latest 12 months, that we generate lower scrap, that we really save money for our customers.
But this sounds always so good on paper, like this transformation still is very new, and not so many experienced people are there which have done or which went beyond use cases and really tackling this real ROI. What's your experience in this transformation? How do you keep the people in this pace, and how do you motivate the team to get this done? Any hacks you experienced?
If I would know that, I would not be working anymore, would be finished. But I think in general, it's coming back to what I said in the beginning. It's about this entrepreneurial mindset, that you have the passion for success. If you go into every corner of technology that's exciting, then you burn money. So when the whole team is with a mindset to think and act like an owner, to try to generate success for the company, that gives a different attitude. Because I know many people who love to play with AI. But when you ask yourself during the day, at the end of the week, how have I used my time to create value for the company? When I create value for the company with AI, that my scrap rate goes down, I have significant savings. Then you can say, I've created value. When you have used the large language module and have driven productivity a lot, that's value. When you create 300 models and no one knows how to access, how to use it, and what result is good for, is it calibrated, is it correct, or is it wrong? Then you've just burned money. And this is about the check you have to do all the time to really make sure that you have this entrepreneurial mindset, that you think and act like an owner, that you try to use the resources of the company to the best of the success of the company.
And getting back to the challenge you mentioned, we talked about it, like clean labeled data is really important. That's usually the bottleneck to get the AI started. Have you got also some tips or hacks to make sure the data quality is up to speed and up to the quality standard that is needed?
I think for us, it's very important that we have a good customer collaboration, that the customer doesn't expect miracles from the beginning. When you set up, for example, an inline inspection, for the inline inspection, it's important that first you collect data. So therefore, with our camera partners, we usually use in the beginning some rules to detect the most important, easiest structural damage failures. You pick them up quickly. But then you start training with real data, clean and labeled data. And then you identify the defects, and in collaboration with customers, you find more defects. And the more you find, the more you can train. So therefore, the success of AI to improve the quality over time goes up exponentially. And that's the time needed in order to go forward. With a few shot learning that I mentioned before, you can accelerate, but this takes more effort on our side early before getting started. Then we take a setup here in our lab and train with the defects coming from the customer, a few already, plus simulations. So then the success rate is higher in the beginning. But if you take the time to calibrate again, to improve the defects, then you really get to the optimal. But that means close collaboration with the customer, training of the customer, having a user interface like our machine learning operations, so that even the customer can train during the operation additional defects.
Hey, I would like to finalize the conversation also with some lessons from crisis. I mean, your company is now becoming an AI company, and it's like in this very buzzy but also very interesting market where you do provide services which there is not much competition. But before, there was also like tough times. Could you point out where you managed to go into this situation when there was the tough time? And then how do you make this change and how do you make this turnaround?
And we are now in the middle of a restructuring, strategic reorientation of the whole company, because the company went into big success in the research area, doing a lot of research programs, very complex, lead towers, no limit of complexity in all different areas, being wide. But now the company has been taken over by the Indus Holding. This is 1.8 billion revenues every year, 45 companies, which means we go from more a research setting into an industrial setting. An industrial setting, in order to scale success, means we need to prioritize. We said we focus now on inline, end-of-line inspection with smart inspection solutions, AI with hyperspectral, infrared, visual spectrum. So really clearly focusing on that. And that allows us to be faster, to be more industrial, and to be able to scale our revenues quickly. So the customers we talk to figure out, we have a great background, we have a great knowledge base, and from there on now we accelerate our more entrepreneurial drive, our success forward. And then even with the Indus Holding, with the capability to grow organically significantly over the next 5 years, plus even inorganic with M&A, that we even find some targets to grow faster and going to the future.
Hey, thank you very much, Ralf. I have a last question. What do you think is the surprising truth you're learning, which most CEOs or CTOs usually don't pay enough attention to? What should they do differently based on your experience?
We talked a lot about change. Change. And I can tell you what I've heard most often. It's a bit of Schwabian dialect. Das haben wir schon immer so gehabt means we've always had it like that. And when you get that feedback, then people love what they do. They love change, but everywhere else, not with them. So when you start and want to be with entrepreneurial success, want to change, want to become faster, want to be more successful, you have to fight rejection. You have to get the passion, the energy of the people, to get the excitement. And when you get the hearts of the people and not just the brain, the hearts and the brain and the passion, then you're winning. And the people that reject, no change. Yeah, that doesn't fly. Our industry, our world, meanwhile, has a pace. We have all these crazy markets. When you look to China, customers want in one day, I want a concept design, I want a first prototype on the table. This sounds crazy. Before you tell them 1.5 years. Now you say a few days, you get it. With 3D printing, new techniques, and our world is changing very fast. And we have to enjoy the pace of the change. And that's the point where make or break for many companies is in whether they enjoy the pace of the markets, of the competition, and whether you're open and love that speed.
What would you give as a key message for our listeners as your last sentence?
We talked a lot about AI, about the future. When you think now about the EU AI Pact, I think that's something where we had a lot of discussion on what is good, what is bad. On the machine learning part, it's rather easy because you're in the low risk domain. But when you go in the large language model, it's important that we in Europe don't get into a barrier for success by the AI Act. By the European Union. We have to make sure that we design in proactively AI because we want to be competitive. We want to create workplaces for our people. We want to have our smart people in Europe. and we want to win in these markets. And we cannot risk that the smart people leave Europe, go to other areas. We have to make sure that we create a setting that allows us to prosper, to win, and make sure that we have great technology and a great quality of life in our Europe here.
Hey, thank you very much, Ralf Klädtke. Really up-to-date topics. We couldn't be more modern and up-to-date than what you just said. Thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Mark, thank you very much. It was a pleasure and look forward to seeing you in Switzerland.